Have you ever really stopped to think about the most incredible piece of tech you own? And no, it's not your phone. It's your eye. Today, we're going to take a journey to understand how this tiny biological marvel takes simple light and turns it into the vibrant, colorful world we see all around us.
Okay, let's start with something we've all seen, something that makes us stop and stare. A rainbow. It's this beautiful, almost magical arc of color in the sky. But the real magic? Well, it's not an illusion at all. It's actually a fascinating dance between the physics of light and the biology of your very own eye. So that's the big question, right? How does a little bit of light traveling millions of miles from the sun get processed by this tiny little organ to create a view that can take your breath away? To figure that out, we've got to look inside. So how exactly do we see? Well, it all starts with this amazing biological machine in our heads. Honestly, the best way to think about your eye is as a super high-tech living camera that has its own built-in autofocus. And here it is, the human eye. It's this small, almost perfect little sphere, just a little over 2 centimeters wide, but it's our personal window to the entire world. It might look a little complicated, but it's really just a few key parts all working together perfectly. The journey for a ray of light starts right here, at the cornea. This is the eye's clear, protective outer shield, but it's also its most powerful lens. Its main gig is refraction, which is just a fancy word for bending light, to get the whole focusing process started. Think of it as the main lens on a camera, doing all the heavy lifting. Okay, next up, light passes through the pupil, and that's controlled by the iris, the part that gives your eyes their unique color. The iris is basically a muscle that works exactly like the aperture on a camera. When it's super bright out, it shrinks the pupil down to protect the eye. And when it's dark, it opens right up to let in every last bit of light it can find. And all the way at the back of the eye, we have the retina. Now, if the eye is a camera, the retina is the digital sensor. It's this super delicate, light-sensitive layer that catches the focus light and then does something absolutely incredible. It turns that light into electrical signals that your brain can actually understand. All right, so we've met all the key players. Now let's see how they all come together in one seamless process. We're going to follow a single ray of light on its amazing split-second journey from the outside world into your eye and all the way to your brain. And this all happens in an instant. Like it's bent by the cornea, it zips through the pupil, and then the lens fine-tunes the focus. A sharp, but get this, upside-down image forms on the retina. The retina converts it to an electrical signal, sends it down the optic nerve, and in a flash, your brain flips the image right side up and tells you what you're seeing. It's a process so fast, it feels like it's happening in real time. So what about that autofocus feature I mentioned? That's something called accommodation. You see, these tiny little muscles in your eye physically change the shape of the lens, which changes its focal length. That's how you can look at your phone in your hands 1 second, and then a cloud in the sky the next. For most people, that comfortable near point for focusing is about 25 centimeters. But, just like any complex piece of technology, sometimes this biological camera can have a few glitches. And these glitches are what lead to the really common vision problems that so many of us have. The two most common focusing errors are myopia and hypermetropia. With myopia, or nearsightedness, you can see things up close just fine, but stuff far away gets blurry. This happens because the light is focusing too early, in front of the retina. With hypermetropia, or farsightedness, it's the exact opposite. Light from things up close focuses too late, behind the retina. And a lot of the time, the cause is just the physical length of the eyeball itself. The good news is, these really common glitches have an elegant scientific solution that has been helping people see clearly for centuries. Eyeglasses. It's all about bending that light just right to get it back where it belongs. So, if you're nearsighted, the light is focusing too soon. How do you fix that? Well, you use a concave lens. Its special shape spreads the light rays out just a tiny bit before they even hit your eye. And that small adjustment is all it takes to push the focal point backward so it lands perfectly on the retina. Problem solved. And for farsightedness, you guessed it, it's the opposite problem. So we need the opposite solution. In this case, the light is focusing too late. A convex lens does the reverse of a concave one. It brings the light rays together, giving them a head start on focusing. This pulls the focal point forward, right onto the retina where it's supposed to be. Okay, now that we're all clear on how the eye itself works, let's circle all the way back to that beautiful rainbow. How does nature take simple sunlight and a little bit of water and paint that perfect arc of color across the sky? The first key to understanding this was a major discovery by none other than Isaac Newton. He figured out that sunlight, what we think of as white light, isn't just white or yellow. It's actually a mix, a composite of all the colors that we can see. And he proved it by shining a single beam of sunlight through a simple glass prism.
And this is what he saw. The prism split that white light into this familiar, beautiful band of colors we call a spectrum. Why? Well, it happens because the prism bends each color of light at a slightly different angle. Red light bends the least, and violet light bends the most, which creates this perfect, ordered sequence every single time.
So a rainbow is really just nature putting on a massive prism experiment for us. When sunlight passes through the millions of tiny water droplets hanging in the air after it rains, each and every one of those droplets acts like a miniature prism, splitting the sunlight into its full spectrum and reflecting it back for us to see. So from the cornea that first bends light all the way to the raindrops that split it into a rainbow, we've seen how having a clear lens is absolutely essential to seeing the world's beauty. But what happens when that very first, most important lens, the cornea, gets damaged? For millions of people, it means a world without color. And that brings us to a really powerful final point. The scale of preventable blindness around the world is, well, it's staggering. According to the source material, there are 35 million visually impaired people in developing countries. And for many of them, their sight could actually be restored. And of that massive number, 4.5 million people are blind specifically because of a damaged cornea. Remember that clear front layer of the eye we talked about? Their blindness is a solvable problem. Their sight can be restored through a corneal transplant from a donor.
And the impact here is just profound. A single donor, one person, can give the gift of sight to as many as 4 people. The donation itself is a simple, quick procedure, and this generosity isn't limited by age or gender or even if the donor themselves wore glasses. It's an incredible way to pass on the ability to see the world.
From the incredible mechanics inside our own eyes to the simple physics that paints a rainbow across the sky, sight is a truly remarkable gift. So, the question this all leaves us with is a powerful one. How can we help make sure that others get to experience that amazing gift too?